Because of this horrendous background, the House of Representatives strongly condemns Biden and his border czar, Kamala Harris.
This is an incredibly volatile moment in part because of his failures.
Are we having
No, there's everything you're saying, I'm sorry, is speculation. Let me tell you what is not speculation.
It's not speculation.
No, it is speculation. No, it is speculation because actually, unlike you, I've actually seen the guy.
They say something happened to me when I got shot. I became nice. And when you're dealing with these people, they're very dangerous people. When you're dealing with them, you can't be too nice. You really can't be. So if you don't mind, I'm not going to be nice.
We don't mind, okay? Mr. President. We don't mind a bit. Kamala Harris got condemned by the House. And not only the Republicans, this was bipartisan. Democrats joining in on the fun. In fact, half a dozen Democrats joined the GOP in condemning Kamala Harris and her work on the border because it was so terrible. And she was clearly the border czar. We covered that here live, watched her little speech when she came out and she said, "Don't come." Remember, she went up down to Guatemala and stood up there behind that podium and lectured everybody down there, said, "Don't come to our country." We said, wow, it's pretty racist, Kamala. So she did it. Now they're saying that she didn't do it. And so the Republicans have said, yeah, you did do it. You were the border czar. You were supposed to resolve all of this. Things were pretty well situated until you guys came in, undid all of Trump's policies, caused total wreckage down there. And now you're trying to say it wasn't her responsibility. They want to make Joe have the stink, but the stink goes over to Kamala too. So half a dozen Democrats, totally bipartisan, as you can see, their slim majority was boosted by Democrats, passed a resolution criticizing Harris for her work. 220 to 196. 6 Democrats voted for this puppy. Democrats from Maine, Jared Golden; Colorado, Don Davis; from North Carolina, Yadira from Colorado; Marie from Washington; and Henry Cuellar from Texas. Wow, and Alaska, all joining in. Republicans viewed the border security as a wedge issue. Kamala's trying to backpedal from this. We're going to hear Karine got asked about this from Ducey because Ducey said, why are they sending out cards now saying that she was not the border czar when in fact she clearly was? No matter what congressional district you go to, Stefanik said, border issues are number one. Here is what the scene looked like when they passed this resolution in the House. You can see time remaining, 214 votes.
The yeas are 220, the nays are 196. The resolution is adopted. Without objection, a motion to reconsider is laid upon the table.
Womp. So sorry, Kamala. You are hereby condemned. And so that's good news from the House. Now, why are they doing this? Well, there's a major propaganda effort afoot. In the red is going to be the clip after Joe Biden is gone. And then in the blue, this is going to be before Biden drops out. Okay, so the blue, as we're going to see, is saying that Kamala is working on the border. The red is going to be Kamala is not responsible for the border. And we're just going to watch this back and forth, blue and red, blue and red. Kamala was on the border, red, Kamala was off the border. Same media, same lunatics, same issue, 2 totally different stories in denial of the truth.
Quote unquote border czar. Vice President Harris was not a border czar.
Meantime, Vice President and border czar Kamala Harris facing some backlash.
What he said about Harris and immigration was not true. She was never appointed border czar.
And this will be her first visit to the U.S.-Mexico border region since she was appointed as the border czar by President Biden.
People are going to have to counter the misinformation. You already hear folks talking about the border czar. She wasn't the border czar.
Yes,
President Biden tapped Kamala Harris, Vice President Kamala Harris, to be the border czar.
Now, she wasn't the border czar.
Wrong.
That's what Republicans labeled her.
They were very critical of Kamala Harris, especially in her role as border czar.
Now what she's up against is folks lying about her border record, calling her a border czar.
Kamala Harris, who was appointed as the border czar.
The Biden team didn't declare her the border czar. They wanted her to work on kind of the root causes of immigration.
There has been so much criticism against Kamala Harris. You know, she was the border czar.
Calling her sort of the border czar, which wasn't necessarily the case.
So the border, if they weren't planning to address it in a major way, do not make her your border czar. She met with some of the Northern Triangle countries, but nothing has effectively changed.
Nothing has changed because Kamala is useless. So the media going into propaganda mode, the House of Representatives in a bipartisan effort have now condemned the Biden administration and its border czar, bipartisan, Democrats and Republicans agreeing. You've been condemned. Elise Stefanik brought this one in, saying on March 24, 2021, Biden asked Kamala to serve as the border czar to address the root causes of immigration. She took 93 days and then finally visited it in June of 2021. Then she traveled near the southern border for the first time in June. And when she did, she went to El Paso, Texas, which is 800 miles away from the Rio Grande. So kind of just like drove by it. What's that over there? Is that Mexico? You're kidding. Looks terrible. Whereas former U.S. Border Patrol Chief Raul Ortiz stated that during his 2 years in the position, position, Border Patrol chief, he wrote this: I've never had one conversation with Biden, the Border Patrol chief, or Harris. For that matter, I was the chief of the Border Patrol. I commanded 21,000 people. That's a problem. Never spoke to them at all. Says current Border Patrol chief Jason Owens said that Kamala Harris has not even spoken with him since he was appointed in July of last year. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, there have been over 9.7 million illegals coming in and 7.9 million encounters nationwide at the southern border and nationwide between the two numbers. There have been 2 million known gotaways. These numbers are a fraction of the truth. Whereas this number presents more known gotaways than in the previous decade combined. There were 170,000 illegal immigrant encounters in May. 170,000. That's like 1/3 of a Wyoming. Whereas May 24th, the 39th straight month, whereas monthly illegal immigrant encounters have been higher than ever seen under Trump. Violent histories with many of these people. American citizens murdered. Laken Riley, dead. Jocelyn Nungary, dead. Rachel Morin, dead. No remedies. NBC News reported that over 50 illegal immigrants with ties to ISIS were also brought in. 350 individuals have their names on terrorist watch lists. 31,000 Chinese nationals have come across the border. They spend $150 billion each year, costing each one of us $1,100 a year. You're welcome. In May 2024, the Committee on Homeland Security shows that Biden secretly flew 400,000 illegal immigrants into the country in various locations. And Biden's border czar, Harris, she resulted in a lot of this. They formally ended Trump's policies, which was remain in Mexico. And so because of this horrendous background, the House of Representatives strongly condemns Biden and his border czar, Kamala Harris. And they affirm that the American people deserve elected officials who aren't pieces of crap. And they clearly and firmly state that the continuation of these policies is terrible for America. And so sent all of that out, Kamala under scrutiny. And people are wondering what else she is doing that might be criminal. In fact, American Accountability Foundation sent this letter out. They sent this to Speaker Johnson. Did Kamala Harris commit a crime in demanding Joe Biden resign so she could take over his seat? The American Accountability Foundation sent this letter to the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson. It says, Dear Mr. Speaker, I am writing today to request that you charge the Committee on the Judiciary and Oversight with the investigation of whether Kamala extorted Joe Biden by threatening him under the 25th Amendment, saying there have been multiple reports that leaders of the Democrat Party, including Kamala, used the threat of the 25th Amendment to end Joe Biden's campaign. The New York Post reported it. Constitution says they can, of course, invoke that, but did they do it or are they threatening him? As the plain language makes clear, a demand by her could have been extortion. If she gave him an ultimatum saying, end your candidacy or I'm going to remove you, well, that doesn't seem right because the 25th Amendment should only be used to actually remove somebody, you know? Shouldn't threaten somebody with a political attack, like either Joe's competent or not. Federal Code, 18 U.S. Code 872. You can't extort somebody for this. Either he's like removable or not. The president's frequent protestations that he was not leaving the race, he said he was capable. He said 2 weeks ago that he was staying in this race. I'm gonna win. And he's gone now. So what external force was exerted upon the president? He gave numerous interviews, said, I am sticking around. This bizarre last minute assertion might have been extortion. Then in the middle of the night, there was a hastily penned letter written by some staffer posted on X. We didn't hear this dude for a long time. Might have been hallucinating, drugged up on COVID drugs. And so Biden may have been extorted. He may be the victim of a crime conducted by the Democratic Party. Isn't that an interesting thought? The people who say that there was an actual insurrection may have insurrected their own president under threat of removal utilizing the 25th Amendment. And really, you shouldn't be using that as a threat. Either he's competent or not. So we'll see if Merrick Garland investigates. We're sure he will not, because the White House is having a difficult time. Okay, Karine came out again for another press briefing. She's stumbling, bumbling all over herself, has no idea what the hell's going on in the White House. She was here like a week ago saying, nope, he's going to be great, going to run, going to be amazing, we're going to win. Now she's like, I think I'm out of a job. Like, I think Kamala doesn't like me. I'm done. I didn't rack up a deal with MSNBC like Jen Psaki to get my show. So she's having a hard time. Here's what it sounds like.
Work for this man who has served his country for more than 50 years with honor, and I look forward to continuing to work with him again ahead in the next several months.
Because he's not going to be president again for another term. So like, I guess for the next 6 months, and then we're not working together ever. Depressed.
Today, the Department of Homeland Security released additional data on the impacts of the executive action President Biden announced on on June 4th. Since then, encounters at the border between ports of entry have dropped more than 55%.
Because you stopped
Average
counting
daily
them.
encounters
Yeah.
are now lower than they were at the end of the previous administration and lower than at this point back in 2019. But we know the only way to bring lasting solutions to secure the border and to begin to fix the broken immigration system is to pass the bipartisan border security agreement. Sadly,
Wrong.
Congressional Republicans have decided to put partisan politics ahead of our national security and twice voted against the bipartisan agreement and badly needed resources to hire additional border patrol agents and fentanyl detection tech.
Okay, so gonna go on with their little border thing. It's like you guys failed on the border and Joe's not even going to be the president again. Like he's done. So are you still trying to sell that story? What's the deal? The border's a disaster. And in fact, Peter Ducey was asking about this. Our friend ALX clipped this for us. It says Karine Jean-Pierre denies this border czar problem at all. And the truth is she was supposed to solve this. So here's how that went down.
Democrats on Capitol Hill are being handed this card with talking points about the vice president and the border. Do you know who's handing this out?
I have no idea. You probably should ask her campaign.
So the first one says Vice President Harris was never appointed border czar. There's never been such a position. It doesn't exist. Why are Democrats so sensitive about the vice president and the border?
Why are Republicans so sensitive about actually not owning up to them getting in the way of a border deal? Why? Why won't they own up to that? Why won't they own up to the last president told them not to move forward? It was a bipartisan deal on just right there, available to them, and they voted twice against it. Twice against it. Why are they so sensitive to moving forward and actually dealing on an issue that majority of Americans care about, is dealing with what's going on at the border?
Do you think that the border would be less of a talking point now if there was less migration to the border? Say, if somebody had addressed root causes of migration sooner?
Wait, hold on a second. Did you not hear the beginning of I know there were a lot of toppers, but one of the toppers, I talked about what we're seeing at the border. It's down by 55%. Not because of Republicans in Congress and what they did. It's because of what this president and this vice president did. He moved forward and took actions to deal with what's going on at the border. Republicans continue to block getting resources to the Border Patrol agents. They continue to block actually dealing with an immigration system. So yes, we are going to debunk the false characterization of the vice president. She was not a border czar. And it's not just us. Independent fact checkers have said the same thing, that did not exist, and that is not true.
Okay, so get ready for this, my friends. We have like 5 months of this left. It's going to be rough. 4 months of this. They're just going to keep deleting evidence, changing their old news stories. Everything that we saw here is going to go back into the trash can, and they're going to try to reinvent a new narrative because that's all they can do, and they have a lot of power to do it. So Karine was also asked about Joe Biden's funeral eulogy. I've never seen a politician literally eulogize themselves on national TV. Wild. I didn't even know you could do that.
For such a monumental decision, the president did address why he left the race, but he left a lot of it for us to read between the lines. He did not make clear why he's leaving the race. Even in the excerpts that you bring up, the best way forward is to pass the torch to a new generation. Is he saying it's because he was too old? In another one, he said that it was for the sake of democracy. That does not answer why he thought he was in the way of democracy.
Look, a new generation, and he also said the next sentence was to unite, it's also to unite the nation. Look, the president has talked about this twice. One in a letter that he addressed to the American people on Sunday, laying out a very monumental, to your point, it is a monumental decision that he made, and he thought very long and hard. He also said that he's been serving this country as a public servant for more than 50 years. It is not an easy decision to make. He talked about unity, he talked about the next generation, he talked about passing the torch. I was asked in this room a couple of days, I don't know, maybe 2 weeks ago, all of these days are coming together, that when the president ran in 2020, he talked about passing the torch. He talked about the next generation. He talked about being a bridge to the next generation. And I was asked.
All right, so still no answers. Nobody really knows why he is leaving regardless. CNN asking interesting questions. If he is gone and it's because of his competency and capability not running again, then why is he still in the White House? And here is how the panel breaks down.
When somebody says he had to, they don't understand the presidency. If he were investigated and he was about to be impeached and maybe removed.
That's so obviously false.
It's not so obviously false.
Yeah,
I'm telling you, he did not have to.
He has not given it up. He's still there for another 6 months when he's manifestly incapable.
Tell me how you know he's manifestly incapable.
Oh, sorry to say that this is a sensitive matter where there are a lot of folks who have been talking about this for some time.
Oh, yes, I've heard them too. My doctor tells tells me he thinks he might have something.
There you go.
But he also says, but he's not my patient.
And look, the deeper problem, the deeper question is who is actually in charge at any given time? You know, this notion that he's only sharp for 6 hours of the day. Right. This is an incredibly volatile moment in part because of his failures.
Are we having everything you're saying, I'm sorry, is speculation. Let me tell you what is not speculation.
It's not speculation.
No, it is speculation. No, it is speculation because actually, unlike you, I've actually seen the guy at 9 o'clock at night.
We have too. It's rough. We had a whole debate. We saw him at 9 o'clock at night. All of us watched it, lady.
I have seen him after he has had 5 different events in 24
Might that
hours.
cloud your judgment?
What?
Do you think that makes you more objective?
Well, the fact that I have actually seen him, whereas you're just reading gossip and speculation gossip.
We all have, okay? We all saw him on a debate. He's rough. He can't talk.
We all saw the debate where Joe Biden was clearly incompetent, unable to address questions that he should have been able to address. We know that Robert Hur and Merrick Garland kept those audio tapes from the public.
And Democratic lawmakers.
We all saw the debate, which is why Kamala Harris was now going to be running for president, deceived the American people.
And this is a
story. One at a time. I appreciate that the enthusiasm that Kamala Harris has now sparked in the Democratic Party has made some people nervous. But the story that Joe Biden is lying to the public is not. When was the last time you were with Joe Biden? When was the last time you were with Joe Biden?
We just saw him speak last night. He looked like he was going to die.
So if you weren't.
There are a lot of Democrats in Congress who were with him in October 2021 who were frightened and afraid in October 2021.
The reason he's not running again is because of his incapability. Like, it's the most obvious thing ever, but they still can't accept it.
Because he could not clearly communicate a case for passing major legislation, something that he specialized in during the Obama administration.
Donald Trump's chief of staff was afraid of Donald Trump.
They still, the whole Republican Party is still afraid of Donald Trump.
That was a real vulnerability.
The only time that we have talked about the 25th Amendment regarding a precedent in the recent history has been cabinet members of Donald Trump.
I appreciate the pivot. I think that makes a lot of sense.
No, it's not a pivot. It's true.
I just like to say thank you.
Okay, so that's what's happening all across Democratic tables, all across America, my friends. It's just a bloodbath in their dining rooms. So we also have Trump, who is enjoying a lot of this as the Democrats continue to contort themselves into pretzels to justify, well, they're basically their entire party. We love Joe. He's totally capable. Actually, we hate Joe. And now he needs to go. But when he goes, we love him again. And now Kamala, who is terrible, we love her all of a sudden. Until she sucks, then we're going to love someone else. Very strange. I think they're in open political relationships. They really don't care, you know, who the person is, whatever. It's very transactional with them. It's kind of disgusting. But here's Trump saying he's ready to play and excited about getting into it and going hard on Kamala.
For 3.5 years, Lion Kamala Harris has been the ultra-liberal driving force behind every single Biden catastrophe. She is a radical left lunatic who will destroy our country. If she ever gets the chance to get into office, we're not going to let that happen. You know, I was supposed to be nice. They say something happened to me when I got shot. I became nice. And when you're dealing with these people, they're very dangerous people. When you're dealing with them, you can't be too nice. You really can't be. So if you don't mind, I'm not going to be nice.
We don't mind, Mr. President. We don't mind a bit.
Kamala Harris is the most liberal elected politician in American history. Did you know that? She's an ultra-liberal politician.
Terrible.
She's absolutely terrible. She's, as you know, more liberal than Bernie Sanders. Can you believe it? She's rated far more liberal than Bernie Sanders. And she's now trying to get rid of her record, but she can't. She's going out and saying things that she doesn't believe. And if she ever got in, she'd destroy this country so fast.
It's rough with Kamala. Democrats are going through a little honeymoon period for the current moment. But once people get to know Kamala, they're going to wake up the next morning and look over and go, ugh. What have we done? Is there any way we can find someone else? Time might be out. We'll see if that happens or not. But we'll be here continuing to cover it, my friends. Thank you for joining us as we do. Thank you so much for subscribing to our channel as well. Thank you for inviting someone you know or love to come check it out when we go live. We'd love to see them and you back here on the next one.